You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
Okay, so today we're going to be working with Nmap. So before we go any further, pause the video, read it, understand it, move on. Alright, so Nmap. Let's get dangerous. If you didn't watch Darkwing Duck as a kid, I feel for you. Of course, I am showing my age, but you need to look him up because Darkwing's awesome. He is the danger that flaps in the night. It is hilarious. Anyway, so it was like a DuckTales spinoff. Anyway, so showing my age. All right, we're going to be doing some changes to the networking inside our virtual box here. We're going to be going to Network Manager, and you're going to basically just click Create, and then when you do that, you just simply check Enable DHCP. All right, and what this does is it basically makes sure this IP address is not on your network in case you're using that for some reason. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Settings on Metasploit and make sure that under Network it's set to host only and that it's using that VBox network. Now, Kali should be on NAT. Okay, if you look, it's set to NAT right here, which is what you want it to be, because that way it can communicate to Metasploit and also to the internet, but Metasploit can't talk out to the internet. Okay, it's basically localized to your PC. It can't go out to your network or anything, which is great. That's what you want. So not that we're going to do anything necessarily dangerous with Metasploit or anything, but it's just a good setup to have. So I'm going to go ahead and power these guys back up real quick. I typically save the state of Metasploit and Kali just because I like to save the state. So one of the things we're going to need to do in here is we're going to need to, with Nmap, we're going to be updating some scripts in here. So it does need the internet for this. Anyway, so Nmap, what is it? What does it do? Why do people think it's a hacker tool? Because it kind of is, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a hacker tool. It's just how you use it. It's like a firearm. It just depends on how you use it. Anyway, so Nmap, right? So we're going to first off make sure we know the IP of the host we're going to attack. In this case, that's Metasploit. I already know that because it's from a saved state, so I know what IP it's using. So that's all well and good. So now we'll use Nmap to, now I can't cover everything about Nmap. Nmap is a very large topic. I can only do a small subset. If you want to learn more about Nmap, you just need to go on their site. They have great tutorials and they have great reading there in general. So read it, learn it, and all that. We're simply going to discuss the things that you would do from a red teamer point of view, or even a blue teamer point of view, because blue teamers a lot of times they are, well, it just depends on the organization. Some people, when they have a blue team, they have, some people, like some corporations for instance, they'll have blue team in-house and they'll rent a pen tester. So sometimes when you have more advanced blue teamers, people who just don't respond to alerts, but people who know what they're doing, people will say, hey, I need you to verify this, right? So a lot of times, like in my job, for instance, I validate configs. So the configs are pushed, we go through change control, whatever, and people make a change, and then it's my job to attack it, to verify that the configuration is what it's supposed to be, which is fun, in all honesty. I have scripts that do it, though, because I don't have time to run an Nmap all day. I have Minecraft to play. Anyway, so Nmap. So Nmap, you can do DNS resolution stuff. So you can do scanme.nmap.org, right? And that'll come back pretty quick, relatively quick, and they'll show you kind of what's there. And they allow you to do this. Okay, they want you to do this to just to hit Nmap there, so that you are allowed to hit something on the internet and make sure it's working and whatnot. But we're going to instead hit our host here, which is significantly faster, which is the main reason I wanted to fire up Metasploit, and also to show you the huge amount of services that are started with Metasploit 2, or Metasploitable, not Metasploit itself. Metasploit's a framework. We'll get into that later. And you'll notice that it says 977 closed ports. And if you add all these up and this, you would get 1,000. So Nmap by default only does the top 1,000 ports. Not saying 1 through 1,000, because obviously that's incorrect, but the most common ports. Okay, so if someone's moved SSH to a different port, and I'll show you that in a second, you won't find it on that host. But I'll show you how you can force Nmap to check all ports, or just to attack a specific port. Okay, so Nmap is good for several reasons. One of the things that I've seen people do a lot is they'll do something like this, and they'll scan a whole range of IPs, and you'll see only 2 hosts were up. One, of course, being the router. So this scanned, 5 IPs, but and I've seen engineers do this, for like network engineering and stuff, where they just want to scan real quick to see if everything's up, and if it is, great. The other thing that you can do with Nmap is you can do only certain ports, which is -p space and then the port you want to do. So if you're looking for FTP servers, you can do that. If there's a new vulnerability for SSH and you want to see what versions you have on your network, right? You could do this, right? You can scan the whole network for port 22 and see how many hosts are there. And see, here's where we get a little more advanced. So like I said, a certain version of SSH, right? So how would you know what version this was? Yes, you could try to connect to it, but that's probably not the best thing to do in mass. So instead, we will do a flag called SV, which is basically, I want to get all the service versions. And this will actually tell you the version. And you can see this is Debian or Ubuntu OpenSSH 4.7. I think we're on like 8 now, so it's old, right? But that's expected because this is vulnerable. We want to make sure that it is vulnerable on Metasploit 2, so we can show you how to break into things. So this gives you the version, which is really nice. Okay. Some other things you can do is you can kind of set the intensity of that. Right, so you can say version all, which sets the intensity to like 9, right? Dial it to 11 or whatever. And then you can do version light, which is a little lighter on the system. You'll notice also we were seeing a little bit of the service information. We know this is a Linux machine. There is OpenSSH for Windows, but we're not doing that. Alright, so I had to pause where we were because my wife came in and I had to spend the last 5 minutes explaining her how to do something. Okay, so we are back in the saddle. Okay, so here we have the version right here. So that's one way to do that. Okay, there are other ways. Let's clear the screen and let's also do something like this, which is OS detection. OS detection is going to fail. Don't try it. Sudo, sorry. It's gonna kind of work, but not. Okay. It's not gonna come back and tell you, this is Windows 7 build, blah blah blah. It's not gonna do that. Most of the time, you're gonna see this, no exact OS match. Okay, and you're gonna see that it's Linux, which, I mean, using a little bit of common sense, this is probably Linux anyway, considering we have SSH, shell, right, NFS, right, so this is probably a Linux host without actually having to run that, okay, but, it having NetBIOS and RPC bind and, some Microsoft stuff, it's possible that it's a Windows box. I mean, you can do... But X11 is pretty much the guarantee that it's a Linux box. You can also do a -A, which is the OS fingerprint version detectioning trace route. It's like the kitchen sink command. Don't use it. It's horrible. Let's also talk real quick about timings. So, Nmap, you can slow down. Okay, and I highly suggest if you are in a situation where you do want to port scan, you want to go low and slow. Okay, IDSs are very finicky. You will send a ton of alerts. So you can say 0 if you want to be like, oh my god, stealth. Also, you need to have about 4 hours to let it run. And then timing level 1 is a little sneakier. Or just not as sneaky, let's put it that way. 2 is like what they call the polite scan, where you're trying not to crash the host, right? And most of the time you're not going to crash the host with doing a net scan or a scan, but maybe you do. 3 is default, so no point in even typing it. 4 means that it's a fast connection, which this is. 5 is just like insane. You can't go above 5; it'll break. So there's those. And let's also now talk about a witty on. Let's also now take a moment to talk about how you would use Nmap in an attack situation. So Nmap, in my opinion, is kind of a bridge between two different use cases. Well, there's lots of use cases for Nmaps, but these are the two main pieces of an attack. So if you are doing an attack or pen test or however you want to frame it, of course there's the scoping and then there's recon right after that, right? So recon, Nmap is kind of recon because it's letting you kind of see what ports are available and out on the net or out on the machine so that you can kind of gather some information, okay? If you know for a fact that who you're going after doesn't have an IDS or you don't care, right, then by all means, slam it, right? Go nuts. And that's recon. Then you get into more of the vulnerability discovery, right? Trying to figure out what vulnerabilities this machine might have, okay? And there are ways to do this. So the OS fingerprinting is awesome, right? If it does work, but it almost never does for me. So that's kind of out the gate. But what you can do is you can say, hey, I want to get service versions for all the services on this machine. And that will actually take a little longer. But what it will do is it'll actually grab the banners from that machine, from these hosts, and come back with version information if possible. Doesn't always work. There are some things that are just not profiled. Folding at home, for instance, is not profiled, but it will show you the actual banner, and a lot of times the banner will tell you what it is. So it'll actually say folding at home client, X11 access is denied, because sometimes they don't tell you the information, which is the best security posture to have. But here you can now see that we have VSFTP 2.3.4, which is a hilarious version. It's the same combination as my luggage. Unreal IRC, because IRC is the bomb. So you can see what services are available. And look, it kind of tells you, it's some more information, right? So it's Unix, or Linux in this case. So what we're going to do now, okay, that was service detection, right? You can also combine that with particular ports. So in this case, you could say port 22, and I want to know just port 22. Okay, so let's go back to this, to the red team side of the house, right? And so we've figured out what versions are there, and we can start looking for exploits on those, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But let's flip to the blue team side. Remember that whole idea of, man, there was a huge vulnerability found in OpenSSH 5, right? And I want to make sure that all the machines on my network that are running SSH all have at least version 5 or above. So again, you can use the sweep method and say, hit all those things and show me what they are, right? And that's good. That works. now we're going to get into a little more advanced. Okay, there are oh good lord, there are script things that are out there. There's the NSE, the net. What is it? My brain is locking up. It is the Nmap scripting engine, the NSE. There are a lot of scripts that are included with it. Don't call this user, by the way. I see people all the time say, it's the user directory. No, it's not. It's Universal System Resources. It has nothing to do with users. Anyway, so there's the Nmap, right? And then there's scripts. So in here, there are a ton of scripts in here for you to use in several ways. Like maybe you want to brute force something. I should probably highlight the thing I'm talking about. Maybe you want to brute force someone. Maybe you want to look to see if they have heartbleed, right? Maybe you want to see some more information about Samba numeration, right? Maybe you want to do brute force with Samba. So these are a lot of more of an attacker mind frame of getting information about your host. And there are a ton in here. You can see that. One that is always included with Nmap is the vulns script, which is here. Now yours won't see this. This is something we're going to add in a minute. I'll show you how you do that in a moment. But right now we use the vulns script. So we're going to do our Nmap again on port 22. And then we're going to say script equals vulns. Okay, and you can just do vulns. You don't need to do .nse. And the good news is the script tag automatically looks in this folder. So if you want to make your own scripts, you can put them in here and you can use them. But anyway, so we do this, and the vulns script requires the internet, okay, and it will go out and it will actually show what CPEs, common CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exploit database. It will tell you which ones apply to this SSH. Okay, so these are all problems that have been found with different versions, and you'll notice also it's really not great for filtering, because 4.7, and this is showing stuff for 3.5 and 1.2, so they might not apply to what you have, but it does let you know vulnerabilities that are there. You can open that, right? So you can open that link, and as long as you have internet, it will get there, and it will show you the CPE information, and you can figure out all the references and whatnot. You can make sure that it's legit and it's good, right? So remote authenticated users to bypass that command, okay? Anyway, we'll get into some of those. We will get into the whole actual real hacking stuff, but I'm taking my time and slowly explaining some of these things. So, these are all really great. There's another one that's out there that is the vulns one. Let me see if I can find Volscan. Let's just talk about Volscan real quick, because that's really where the rubber meets the road kind of thing. So web browser, okay, and we're gonna go nmap vulns. The vulns script is awesome. So you're gonna go to its Git repo here, and all we're gonna do is we're going to copy this to our clipboard, okay, and we're now going to really quickly. I'm going to remove the Volscan. I'm going to sudo that. Let's just erase everything, right? So, actually, that's the wrong one. That was vulns, not vulnscan. I'm sorry. Volscan. Okay. So, we're going to get this one. Sorry. Go to code and copy. So, this is Volscan, okay? So, we're going to clone that into this repo here by just simply saying git clone, and then shift and insert will paste in the terminal. Also, Control-Shift-V will work as well. And you need to be root because of the fact that you can't write in here. Now, seeing as how we just downloaded this and pulled it, the scripts are up to date, okay? But if you later on want to reuse this, you can go into the vulscan, and in here there are utilities, and then there's an updater, okay? You want to sudo change the mod or the mode. I always say mod. Change the mode on that file to executable, and then you would simply update by doing that. And of course, this is just going to tell you that there's no updates for it because of the fact that we just cloned it, so there's no updates. So we're going to go back to our home directory to shorten our path a little bit. Now, what does that do as he goes back in his history by hitting up 100 times instead of typing? So vulscan, because it's inside a directory, you're going to need to do that. You'll actually need to specify that. And that's going to take a second. But it does a lot more. Okay. Also, I don't think it needs the internet because it's got the CVEs with it. So, and CVE is it's not correct term. CSV, comma separated value files. Anyway, so these are all of the, well, not really all, but a lot of the common databases for vulnerabilities. So we only went for port 22, right? So this database only had 2 openings or 2 hits. MITRE has a ton because it's MITRE. They have everything. Security Focus only talks about this one. IBM only talks about that one. Exploit DB only has 3. OpenVAS, which used to be Nessus, it's like the open version of it. It has a ton. Now, what's interesting about the OpenVAS is that these aren't necessarily, like they're a little wordy because like this is just for Fedora. You'll see some other ones down here that are just for Debian or FreeBSD, Slackware, all those. Security Tracker has a bunch. So these are all these vulnerability reports, and it lets you know kind of what is actually used to break into it. So again, this is a red team, blue team thing. It's applicable to both because of the fact that, both sides need to kind of see this. So a lot of times when people ask me for a quick scan of their network, I just do this, right? I just simply scan some ports, and then I give them a report of this, and I say, these are the vulnerabilities that you have. Have a good day. Now, notice here, like these are kind of crappy because they don't tell you what version. They just simply say OpenSSH. They don't say that it's version 3 or 4 or 5. So a lot of people, they don't want to look through all that. And I understand that. I don't want to look through all that either. So that is a kind of an overview of quick things to do with Nmap. Now comes down to, Phil, we know that we're not going to be having port 22 open, right? Because one of my other videos, I talk about how to obscure that. So maybe it's not on port 22, right? And you're right. It's very probable it's not. So maybe maybe this is the machine. I think it is. So you see that SSH is closed on this device. This is my Minecraft server for the house. So you see it's closed, and you're like, well, okay. Well, what do we? I know that OpenSSH or SSH is enabled on this box because it's a headless box, right? I don't have that Minecraft server to where I can log into it. I don't use the GUI really for anything. So this is going to take a moment, and you see that OpenSSH now is open on port 2222. And if you remember in that video, I said that port 2222 is not a good port because people already know about it. Prime case and candidate and point, right? You also notice that it's running Tornado because it's running Crafty. What you don't know is that it's running Crafty 4.0. And everyone's like, man, I want to see it. I want to see it. It's getting there, I promise. But I need to brush up on these skills, which is why I am doing these videos. So, like I said, port 2222 is already known. But if you wanted to force Nmap to do all the ports, right, which I highly suggest you don't do, unless you are doing a timing of 5, really aggressive, right? And let's not even do the servers, the versions. We don't care about the versions. You can do port dash P dash, and that'll do all 65,000 plus ports. It's a lot, but it does quick. But you'll notice something here, right? You'll notice that this shows HTTP alt, whereas before when we said grab the versions, grab the headers and the banners, it's different. So this shows Minecraft, right? Minecraft wasn't showing up here. There's another Minecraft server running. So that's why you sometimes miss things. And I've seen pop servers that are running Minecraft. So it's kind of funny. And then here, right? So port 2222, you don't know what Ethernet IP-1 is. But if you were to do the service banner after that, if you got curious about that one and you're like, man, what's that port 2222? And that'll tell you really quickly by doing the versioning. So that has been a relatively brief overview of Nmap. We're coming up on 30-minute time, which I thought this would be a long video, but in this case it's not, which is good. And Nmap, like I said, it's kind of a tool that fills many different roles. It can be used for password brute forcing, so you can go into that section of your pen test. You can use it for recon. You can use it for vulnerability checking. You can even do it for blue team type stuff. So again, it's a very powerful tool. There are lots of uses for it. It does amazing things in general. So all of that said, be careful with it. You can set off alerts, and like I said, don't scan things that aren't yourself. Okay, the Chinese have the market on that one. That's their job. So, and Russia and Iran and all the other places. But anyway, so that's been a pretty good overview. I'm going to shut up now, and we will get into cooler things in a little while.